All right.
Still got some work inside to.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's take our seats. We're going to get ready to start this meeting. Is mic on? Good morning, everybody. Let's get some order. We're going to get ready to start this meeting. Want to use the gavel on the second meeting? In a big ram or?
I'm like, use your gavel.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday, January 10th. This is a regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Due to issues arising from COVID-19, the board is using a WebEx teleconferencing format for today's meeting and may be participating via the World Wide Web. If you'd like to make a public comment through the teleconferencing format today, please make sure that you're identified by name in the WebEx system. For those interested in commenting during unscheduled appearances at 9 a.m., please use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized. You will be allowed up to 2 minutes for public comment. Members in the audience who filled out speaker cards will be taken in the order they were received by the clerk, and online speakers will be taken in the order that they appear in the WebEx program, showing that their hand is up. If you wish to speak today and are having issues with the raise your hand feature in WebEx, please physically raise your hand so that we may see you and wait to be recognized. Each vote today will be a verbal or voice vote so that members of the public can hear how each board members voted. After we've had a motion and a second regarding each item we're taking up today, there will be a roll call vote by district. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Neves,
Here.
Richard Valley,
Here.
Doug Verboon,
Here.
Rusty Robinson,
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum, ready to do business. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next is the invocation. Would you please welcome Pastor Chad Fagundes from the Quintanilla Church?
Yeah, I know.
Good to see everybody live this morning. God, bow your heads with me. And so, Father, we pause in this moment because we just recognize your lordship over the Kings County and over the state of California. God, I pray that today, every single person in this room and even online, God would be able to understand, Father, the heart that you have for them. I pray that today, Father, that we would take the steps to get a little closer to you. I pray, Father, for this meeting. I pray, God, that you would give wisdom and discernment to everyone that's involved in making decisions. I pray, God, that your hand would be over the votes. God, I pray, Father, that with all the rising prices through the state of California, I pray, God, for favor over the families that are affected. God, thank you for the rain. We thank you, God, for always providing, God, everything that we need. And so, God, I pray that today would be a day, Father, where we recognize your lordship in our personal lives. And I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah, amen. We have a good friend to Kings County, the audience today. Mr. Cal Rossi, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Great. Please join me in saluting our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. Let's go. Okay, next item is unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or on any other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 2 minutes are allowed for each item. So we're going to stick to the 2 minutes as close as we can. And before we get going with unscheduled appearances, County Council, you got anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, I'd just like to add these following comments. The board will take public comment today as agendized. To the extent the comments seek action from the board to alter the election or recount process, I am here to advise that the board has no authority to involve itself in the election process and will not engage in discussion over these matters in open session. Any discussion to be had will be in closed session and solely for the purpose of receiving legal advice concerning the threat of litigation.
Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, would you like to start us off on the speakers in order?
Yes, Cal Rossi, I'll let you go first. I should have had you stay.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board and staff. My name is Cal Rossi. I'm a government relations manager for Southern California Edison. And I just wanted to briefly introduce myself as I will be your voice to Southern California Edison going forward. I look forward to working with all of you. And as I was sitting here, I was thinking that I think the last time that I worked in this area was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. Met the chairman out in Corcoran during the Schwarzenegger administration. And of course, Supervisor Neves invited me out to several events at that time. And it doesn't seem like 20 years, but it's been over that. And so anyway, I won't take up any of your time. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself and say a Happy New Year, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back, sir.
The next speaker is Mark Devine.
Good morning, Kings County Board of Supervisors. I'm Martin Devine. For the past 2 years, I've served as a commissioner for the City of Hanford Planning Commission, and prior to this, I served a 4-year term on the Hanford City Council, representing District C. During this time, I found that one of the largest concerns of constituents has been transparency and integrity in government. Last November, over 27,000 residents of Kings County cast a ballot for the 2022 general election. Every election, the constituents have the ability to have their voices heard. Regardless of party or background, every citizen receives this right. It is with this in mind that I am speaking with you today. Many voters, all constituents of the board, have had their ballots denied for this election cycle due to an alleged signature mismatch. Many of these voters have been casting their ballots by mail for years without any issue. California Code of Regulation, Article 6, Section 20960B, specifically states that comparison of a signature shall begin with the basic presumption that the signature on the ballot or envelope is the voter's signature. In light of the recent recount, many of your constituents are upset that their ballots did not receive a thorough review and explanation for why their ballots will not be opened. Some even return ballot cure letters to update their signatures and prove their intent to vote, and still their votes are not counted. Every vote counts. Every vote should be sacred. This brings into question the transparency and integrity of our elections here in Kings County, and we do not want the Kings County government in question. I urge the Board of Supervisors to compel the Kings County Registrar of Voters to again review these 150 signatures and give the voters of our county an adequate and thorough review before deciding that their votes will not count. Thank you.
The next speaker is Barbara Martin.
Morning, Happy New Year. My name is Barbara Martin, and I'm a resident in the Island District of Lemoore, and I have lived here for nearly 17 years, and I have had many hats. My current hat is grandma and part-time loss adjuster for the USDA. During COVID and all of that, a lot more time became on my hands, and I started questioning a lot of things. And one of those was kind of our voter system. And I've always lived on a farm, so I've always voted absentee by mail, and that always felt really great. And then everyone got a ballot in the mail, and I started thinking, you know, why do I vote by mail? I come into town every day. I do everything that I need to do and want to do and feel important to do. So I started voting in person, which took just a short amount of time. I started losing trust, just like I wouldn't mail a $50 bill. I didn't feel comfortable giving up my right. And it came a long time for me to realize what a right it is to vote and how important now it is for me to have it counted. I don't want to sound accusatory or condemning, because I did take the opportunity to spend a morning in the elections office with Loopy and his team. And I cannot tell you how more gracious, how transparent it felt, how they sat me down at the desk to watch how they did signature verifications. And I feel very comfortable that Kings County is not the problem. But I do have an issue with how the state intervenes in our county election process. So one thing that concerned me, it was that in verifying signatures, there's a lot of room to be had, because the electronic signatures look very different than that. But I thought when I sat down with them, they did a great job. And there was several that had a discrepancy or there was a question. But from what I learned at that day, those votes then went to the state. It left their department. So that made me think, a lot of times I just kind of trusted our ability of voting and it being counted was about 10 years ago. I put my husband's ballot in the mail. Hope I don't get arrested for this, but I actually signed it for him. And I signed it for him and it went in and we received a call from the Kings County election office stating that his signature doesn't match. So my husband had to go in and re-vote for his vote to be counted. And I felt like, wow, they're doing their job here at Kings County. And I still think they're doing their job. But I think that there's problems within the system of the state. And I don't know what to do about it. I'm not a politician, but I think that there should be some type of committee to look into that. And if we have a sheriff, we have our body of government, what we can do as a county to change how we do things. I mean, in the
15 more
general
seconds.
election, only 17,000 people didn't vote in the general election of 2016. In this last vote, where everyone has a ballot by mail, 34,000 plus people did not vote. So we made it easier for them and there's less people participating. Well, why are they not participating? Because people don't feel like their vote counts. It doesn't matter. And we need to fight that we are not a selection. It's not a selection. It is an election and it is our voice. It is for the future of our children and grandchildren that we make sure that we secure our vote. And we need to, as a county, work together to do so. So I just bring this up today. I don't know what to do. I'm just a grandma and my farm. And I think that there's real concern and we need to, if there's a committee to be had, a bipartisan committee, I'm happy to do whatever I can do to help secure our votes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
The next speaker is Maxine Bennett.
Good morning, Chairman Valley, members of the Board of Supervisors. You think it'll rain? Many of you know me. My name is Maxine Bennett, and I'm a lifelong resident of Hanford. I've been involved for 20 plus years in election and in the election process. I've spent many election nights at the county elections office, and I would like to thank the board for allowing the community time to address this important issue. It has been brought to light that there are about 150 ballots that have been discounted because of issues, for example, alleged signature mismatches. It's always been my understanding, and Martin alluded to the fact that the presupposition is the voter intended his or her vote to be counted. Yes, there are signature discrepancies, but I always assumed that those were reviewed extensively and weighed heavily towards the voter. Kings County has elections that hold tremendous importance, and because our elections are historically close, they impact who represents our voters in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. That is certainly enough cause for review. As I'm sure you are aware, there is a climate among constituents, and it's been alluded to by our previous speaker, that people feel that their vote does not count, or what good does it do? It doesn't matter anyway. And I tell them it may not matter statewide, but it does matter in local races and district-wide. We have over 61,622 registered voters in Kings County, and we had approximately 44% voter turnout. To me, that's low. But I value our election system and the privilege to vote and choose my representatives. I hope I can tell our Kings County voters that every vote was carefully reviewed and counted. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to address this issue.
The next speaker is David Shepard.
I'm going to keep this really brief because you folks heard from me last week, but thank you again for the opportunity to come before the Board of Supervisors. But, just from hearing from the constituents here, I just leave you folks with a parting message of let us reason together. I know that from what council had said earlier, there is really no impending decision that you folks could make. But seeing that Lupe's position is a board supervisor appointed position, I do think it is necessary that we review what has taken place regarding this entire process. And, the hostilities have started from Kings County initially. So all I ask is that we take a step back. We look at these ballots one more time. We review these as an opportunity to really quelch any proceedings going forward that could go into pending litigation. This is for the behalf of the voters that are asking for their ballots to have be re-reviewed. I do not think that this is anything that is outside of the scope of the board having a significant amount of ability to really just speak to the county employees, the ROV here. This is something that we should be looking to do. If this was in Tulare County, Fresno County, Kern County, there's been misinterpretation of election law that I believe has taken place from the ROV as well. I hope you folks have the opportunity to really review that in the closed door session. So I appreciate the time with the board. I do really enjoy Kings County, and I think that this is a wonderful place. Your constituents would like to have their voices heard. So I just ask that you folks give them the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Andreas Borges.
Good morning. Chairman Valley, Vice Chair Verboen, members of the board. By now you are aware that the California Elections Code and state regulations require a legal presumption that the signature on the mail-in ballot is the voter's signature. It is a legal presumption that must be overcome before a voter may have his or her ballot excluded from the count. Here, the Kings County Registrar could not have complied with California's mandatory review criteria. 2 weeks ago, the relevant parties convened and were presented with approximately 150 mail-in ballots involving signatures. With an average time of less than 10 seconds, both parties were forced to examine, consider, and render a decision on whether to challenge a particular ballot. Thereafter, despite numerous objections by both parties, both the Hurtado campaign and the Shepard campaign, the registrar forced the parties to address the approximately 29 challenge ballots in the same egregiously fast process to which verdicts were rendered by the registrar without providing rationale, reasoning, or criteria used to reach a decision. In short, 150 ballots and then an additional 29 challenge ballots were dispatched by the registrar in a record time of 1 hour and 45 minutes. To put this in perspective, that means the registrar allotted approximately 49 seconds for a complete determination of approximately 179 separate matters, including the physical processing time of each ballot review, each ballot challenge and counter argument, and a written verdict. Under these circumstances, it is clear the registrar could not have complied with California's mandatory review criteria. I can personally attest that the registrar categorically denied a number of challenge ballots because initials were used or names were in a different sequence. This is a direct violation of state regulation 20960. It's clear in print in the elections code or the state regulation. If improper processes occurred in this fashion, We must all conclude there was not a meaningful review, a legally sufficient review of the ballots, and that the registrar should allow a recount in a correct fashion. To do otherwise, the registrar is disenfranchising the vote in Kings County. The Shepherd team has no knowledge of how these voters voted because the ballots remain unopposed or unopened, excuse me. So this is not an effort to rehabilitate only favorable votes, but to disallow votes under the processes in place conflicts with the basic tenets of election law and plain fairness to both candidates, both the Hurtado campaign and the Shepherd campaign. My respectful request to you is that you evaluate this serious problem in closed session today, and then encourage the registrar to allow for these specific ballots to be lawfully processed. The recount cannot be deemed complete by Kings County without this remedy. Now, County Council has exchanged correspondence with an attorney representing the Shepherd campaign, indicating that on January 4th, this matter was concluded. The Shepherd campaign was notified on January 5th at noon, and on January 6th, within the prescribed 24-hour period of time, asked the registrar to continue to look at additional information they request, which is their right under law. So factually and legally, in closed session, if it is represented to you, this matter is closed and the recount is over, that is legally and factually inaccurate. There should be no need for the Shepherd campaign to litigate this matter in the courts when the registrar has an opportunity to correct the glaring mistakes at this very time. Thank you in advance for your consideration in closed session.
That's all the speaker cards that we have, and we did receive correspondence from Carson Macedo and Jacob Pepe, and we will make copies of those and they will become part of the permanent record. And it appears that Yvette online has her hand raised, their hand raised.
Yvette, you're up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to make a comment today. So my comment, first of all, I want to say that I am a new voter this campaign season. And even though it's my first time voting, I became involved in the political proceedings in the county a few years ago. And the reason that I wanted to get involved in any way that I could was that I was aware that Kings County used to be protected under the Voting Rights Act. And there was a history there of disenfranchising the vote. So that's the reason that I became interested. So last in 2020, I was involved in volunteering for to watch the election process. And this year I became involved in watching the election process. I had the opportunity to go into the registrar's office and watch the ballots being counted. My experience with that was a positive one. I was shown the entire process, like starting with how mail-in ballots get wanded in, how they try to verify the signatures with people's voter file, and then basically the entire process. They were very transparent. I was actually very surprised because prior campaigns, folks didn't have such positive experiences, but I was pleased with what I saw, right? I also helped with the process of ballot curing in our county. I personally went to folks' homes in Hanford, Lemoore, Corcoran, Avenal, to call or visit at their homes folks who were on the mismatched signature list or who had turned in their ballot without a signature. Our efforts were arduous. We called folks on both of these lists, no matter the party. various times left various messages, and the folks who responded to us or who actually opened the door, we actually were able to collect their forms that the registrar's office sent out, or we had printed our own and had them fill it out and returned it for them. Now, being that I did this process personally, I kept up on, I would check the lists every day from the registrar's office, and I would make sure that those names were coming off. Now, the ones that I did personally, I can say with certainty that those I saw those names come off the list. So to hear that the count is, first off, that the election is being disputed and that there was a recount, to me, it's just surprising because I didn't expect that, being that I thought that the process was pretty transparent, and based on what knowledge I had with helping folks register to vote and telling them, hey, make sure your signature matches your when you sign your ballot, it matches your voter card when you register to vote. That way there's no problem. And just the information that I had and that I gave to other folks that were registering to vote or that were asking questions. I'm just surprised that this is an issue right now. Because like I said, my experience with the Kings County Elections Office or Registrar's Office was a positive one. So I'm interested to see how this will play out. I don't think that this recount is necessary, to be completely honest. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last call. Anybody else, Madam Clerk?
I have no one else, but Yvette, could you give us your full name so that I can include it into the record?
Oh, yes, sorry. It's Yvette Chaitis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Okay, last time, anyone else from the chambers? Anything from the board? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We will now move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes. The first is item A, report out of closed session from the regular meeting for January 3rd, 2023. Council.
The board took no reportable action.
Thank you. Item B is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting for January 3rd, 2023.
Move. Second.
We have a motion by Fagundes, second by Verboen. Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Item stands approved, 5 in favor. The next item is consent calendar. We have several items under consent calendar. If the board members have had a chance to review the items, there are no questions or comments. Chair will entertain a motion.
Question or comments? I move the consent calendar as presented. Second.
Motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk, will you please call the row?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Items passes 5 in favor. Now we move on to regular agenda items. Mr. Hill, I understand item A for administration is being rescheduled.
That's correct. Due to some technical difficulties secondary to the weather, they'll be rescheduling that for next week.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. That takes us to item B. That comes from Department of Finance. Mr. Erb, good morning, sir. I have one item.
Good morning, Jim Erb, Director of Finance. I moved over here. I'm going to ask Sergeant Spear to come on up to the podium as well. So I'm here with some bad news. About a year and a half ago, we were victim of a sophisticated and thought out theft. We ended up sending out a check of $890,000 to some fraudsters who had posed themselves as a contractor, and they had done their research, thought this out. We were receiving emails that looked exactly like the emails from the contractor themselves. And when the invoice came and we acknowledged that the invoice had been received, they asked us to change the account number. Rather than receive a paper check, they wanted automatic deposits. We have pushed people for automatic deposit. It's normally a safer way to do business. We had some new staff and we ended up making the change without investigating the request with the company itself. So this check went out. It took about 5 days. The contractor called and asked where the payment was. And we said, well, we've already sent it. And at that point, we realized that something bad had happened. We immediately called the sheriff's department, and that's why I've asked Sergeant Spear to come up. He was instrumental in recovering approximately 90% of what we sent out, which at the time, I thought it was probably all gone. We ended up with a final loss of 85, right around 85,000, which is what I'm asking we replace today out of contingencies. We needed to complete the project. It was the juvenile hall project is where the funds came from. And we put procedures in place where we will prevent this. We have multi-factor verification now. And since this event, we've probably stopped it 4 to 5 times of other similar sort of attacks on us. And so our procedures are working. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it because I don't think it's a good thing to discuss. But I would like Sergeant Spear to talk about what happens once they receive the money. And we were just so fortunate that he got involved so quickly and that other agencies, federal agencies stepped in and helped us with this. And I believe there were a few other governments involved in this one. And I think we probably recovered more than most of them. And it's because of the effort of Sergeant Spear. So would you talk a little bit about what your steps were?
Certainly. Sergeant Spear, Kings County Sheriff's Office. Good morning. As you said, these frauds are convoluted. They are not things that happen on the cuff. For instance, these are rather strategic, very planned out. They are considered a BCE. It's a business compromised email scam. They happen all over the country on a regular basis. Usually the networks are fairly, they have background. This isn't the first that they've done. They do their research. They typically monitor Board of Supervisors. They typically monitor city council meetings, updates on construction projects. These individuals that we were able to find through this process were able to target a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one group, this one enterprise, 7 different entities, 3 of which were municipalities, counties. The remaining were private businesses which were in business construction projects and whatnot with municipalities and county governments. These individuals, they typically will gather their research. They will target the entity and they will submit their opportunity and they'll strike when they feel like the guard is down, and that's typically how they do it. As was mentioned, the loss initially at the county was approximately 893, 754.82. The recovery or frozen assets at this point was 802, 921.90. That happened in December of 21. As everybody here knows and has a familiarity with government process and those kind of things, they take time. There is a number of individuals that were involved in this, and the idea behind it is to construct a network quickly, develop a plan, and my go-to in a lot of these financial crime situations is the U.S. Secret Service, and I would just like to make mention, if I can, Andrew Frey, Jason Blyde, and Nicholas Daigle, and the Office HSI in Fresno. And the individuals I mentioned are all with the United States Secret Service, with Andrew Frey being the forensic financial analyst out of San Francisco. A number of folks I was able to meet throughout just the course of my career that I was able to make those calls to, and they did miracles, to be honest with you. They were able to seize a number of these funds. We were able to track a number of these funds that went across the United States into Pennsylvania and Florida. These funds were seized out of shell companies, and these shell companies are developed out of a singular strategic deposit. Once that deposit's made, those deposits are individualized, and they're sent out from there to a number of shell companies that spread across the United States. These companies are sometimes under real names, sometimes under fake names. There's really no telling how they get there. They begin depositing, or extracting these funds in small denominations to not raise a queue to what they consider to be money mules. Once the money mules have the small denominations, they'll take a small piece of that and they'll deposit the rest of those monies into other accounts. It's payment for basically being the money mule. Those are the ways in which the money is dispersed quickly and you never get it back. A lot of these funds were actually secured, locked, and located prior to those money mules being able to take those funds. And prior to doing so, we're able to freeze those funds, which is where we are now. These funds are, besides the $12,500, which was able to be transferred back to the county, and it's a single party transfer, given that it doesn't require basically a release of liability on behalf of the bank. It came directly back to ours. The remaining, however, were in second, third, and fourth party transfers at that point in transit. So they had to be frozen there. There is a account which is set up through the U.S. Secret Service, which all those funds will be eventually transferred back to a singular account. And from there, once the U.S. District Court is able to submit their request, those funds will be immediately transferred back. We are in, of course, transit, like I said. The U.S. Attorney, Allison Berg, is the responsible party in this one. She's filed all of the writs and all of the requests to the U.S. District Court. There is a update coming up in February for basically update of service. All the parties which are involved in this, they have to be notified by law, even if they are illicit parties. Those parties have to either accept or they have to refuse their their involvement. And each one of those has an opportunity. As of this time, Allison Berg has informed me that nobody has. Obviously, most don't in these situations, which will be the update in February, at which point they will notify that their services and notices have not been returned on part of any of those parties. So we should be able to start the process for the funds recovery. But those funds, as I said, are secured, are locked in. I can honestly tell you that out of these other companies, we are one of two to recover anything. The second company was able to recover $20,000. The largest loss in the scam was to a county not in our state, and that county lost over $3 million. There was the network here, they estimate, went to the range of probably between 5 and 8 million throughout all of the companies, with ours being probably the largest single seizure they had out of the other companies as a whole. So patience is the key word here. We can't make them go faster than they are already. Trust me, I try often. And it's just a waiting game at this point.
Thank you for the update, sir. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else to add, Mr. Herb, before we go to the board?
That's all I have. I apologize for this loss. I have not experienced a loss like this before ever. And I've seen that happen and get very close, but it's, it's 85,000. It's a huge loss. It's 890,000 is a devastating loss.
Sorry.
And so I feel fortunate that we did recover some.
Good work. Good work. To the board?
Yeah, we're targeted all the time, so this is kind of
Yeah.
a big deal, but we've had it happen in the past with, I think, a software program. Before I got on the board, we paid them a lot of money for it, never got it, so. Yeah, we got to be very much aware at all times when people collect money from us, so. This is just a budget adjustment, right?
Yeah.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve as presented. And thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Robinson.
Mr. Chairman, for starters, thank you, Sergeant. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department and all law enforcement. This is
huge save. So thank you for that. Any perpetrators caught?
They have a number of identified, but their case is still ongoing. It's still open.
Mhm, mhm. And we've solved the procedural issues, I guess. There's no disciplinary actions because it was procedural, right?
Yep, yeah.
Thank you, Soup Neves. Soup Fagundes?
Second.
Second. Okay. Motion by Super Boone, second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Item passes in favor, 5. Thank you. Next item comes from the Public Works Department. It's item C under regular agenda items. Good morning, sir. Mr. Cabrera.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mitchell Cabrera, Chief Engineer with the Public Works Department. Before your board this morning, requesting the approval and for the chair to sign the notice of completion for the fiscal year 21-22 SB1 funded road improvement project. On August 30th of 2022, your board authorized awarding the construction project to AG Construction Corporation. The project scope was 17 miles of roadway improvements, including asphalt overlays and some slurry seals in other minor roads throughout the county. Construction began September 12th of last year, and we finished the project mid-December, around December 7th, the week of December 7th of 2022. Over the course of the construction project, we did have a couple of change orders. However, with the change orders and some of the project savings and scope adjustments, we were able to come under budget on the project. The original contract amount was around $4.82 million. The total project amount with the change orders and the project savings is right under $4.8 million. So with this, we would like to request the approval of the notice of completion so we can let the contractor know that the project is complete and also start the clock towards the retention release for the project. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Any
So a
questions?
change order that we saved money on.
Those are approved.
Those are-
Yeah, it's those that cost us money, the ones that.
Should just put that under consent calendar on it. Any questions or comments from the board? We have a motion by Supervisor Fagundes,
I'll second.
second by Super Boone. The only question I have, sir, thank you for the report. With the recent cold weather and the rains, have you had a chance yet to see how the work is holding up? I asked that because coming in this morning on Highway 43, just you see, I've never saw it look so bad. Just everything washed up, cracks all up and down north and south side. And just want to, I get that, but seeing the type of work that was done on those, I want to know how our work is holding up.
So
on
at
County
least
Road.
for two of the major overlay segments, I've personally driven them and it's been fine. I will have our inspector go out and review all these roads just to make sure they have held up. And given that the notice of completion will be filed, if it's approved, we'll still have that 1-year warranty maintenance in case something does.
That's good enough. All right, thanks, sir. That's good enough. Okay, so we had a motion by Super Fagundes, second by Super Boone. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Item passes 5 in favor. That completes the regular agenda items. That takes us to board member announcements and reports. And we'll start with Supervisor Nance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Had an opportunity to review the ag program at Island Elementary with Supervisor Baboon. Neat program, just not enough hours in the day for the students to be able to participate in that, but it's a great start. Also, that afternoon had the opportunity to go with Abraham and Ed and who are and kind of survey the Fresno County watershed area that feeds into Kings County, try to get ready for this storm event that we've had the last few days. Continues to impact county operations. We'll have another meeting here at lunchtime and try to figure out what the move will be in the future. American Legion breakfast continues to take place in Lemoore. Checked the river flow on Saturday in Reedley. Took in a basketball game at the same time, but there was a little bit of water in the Kings River as far as down as Reedley on Saturday. And then yesterday, we continued to interview manager candidates for the South Fort Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency of South Fort Kings. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Supervisor Neves. Supervisor Fernandez?
I'm good today.
Good to go. Thanks, sir. Supervisor Burbank?
Last week I attended a funeral for Mr. Dennis Mann. Dennis Mann was my ag shop teacher back in, I don't know, I think 70 something. And anyway, during his funeral services, it talked about his career at the high school from 1973 till he passed with Lou Gehrig's disease. And he was one person that won 25 national teams championships, agronomy and meats. So it's amazing. And they talked about how, you know, he would handpick his students to be on his team. And that was just a national event. That's the one that you see in Indiana or where they go back east in numerous, you know, 50 or 60 or 70 wins locally with the team. So it's a big loss for the community, but you know, he led by example and people wanted to be just like him when it comes to the meat judging team for our school and our young kids. So it just kind of brought it up when Joe and I went and saw the Island School ag department. You know, we're starting them young and we need more teachers like that. So thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor Burbank. Thank you, sir. Supervisor Robinson?
Mr. Hill and I had the pleasure of meeting with some water engineers throughout the week. And we always encourage the input, particularly in regards to the water ordinance. They had some insights there. We're appreciated. It was discouraging to hear from them, at least in the Delta system. And on that particular day, they monitor it regularly that 93% of the water in the Delta system was flushed to the ocean. So I'm grateful for the water. I'd like to keep it. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Just very quickly, another thing I'd like to put on my record, it's a little personal. I want to wish a happy birthday to my son, Kobe. Tomorrow he turned 21 years old. He's for 10 years, he came here throughout his school years on our Youth and Government Day, and I was always happy to have him up here and have the pictures and the memories that. But he's very proud of him. He's in his junior year at Fresno State University. He's doing good and look forward to celebrating the next couple of days with him. So with that, Mr. Hill, board correspondence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For board correspondence, your board received none other than the ones mentioned earlier during public comment by Ms. Venturella. For upcoming events, the Lemoore Parks and Recreation will be hosting a mini music makers class on Thursday. The next class will be January 12th at 4:15. Children ages 5 and under will experiment with instruments and learn rhythm and beats. Parents must be present with their children and classes are held in a dance room. Children's Storybook Garden Museum will be hosting a Mad Hatter Tea Party on Saturday, January 28th from 10 to noon. The event is for ages 6 and under. There will be games, snacks, and face painting. For more information, please visit the Storybook Garden Museum website. The Rotary Club of Hanford will host its 45th annual Crab Feed fundraiser on Saturday, February 4th at Hanford Civic Auditorium. Tickets are $100. There are also various sponsorship opportunities available. I would also like to highlight a service that CART has announced where individuals can purchase a 3-month pass for January, February, and March for only $20. The passes are good for all local and out-of-town routes. For more information, you can contact CART. For upcoming agenda items, just a reminder, the board is dark on the 17th and observance of Martin Luther King Day. So our next board meeting will be on the 24th. So far, we only have the public health update on COVID, influenza, and other communicable diseases. That concludes that report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments, Michelle, from the board? Okay, seeing none. Our next item, the board will be going into closed session for 1, significant exposure to litigation. 2nd, personnel matter, public employee discipline, dismissal, release. Going on to the adjournment, as Ms. Hill mentioned, the board will be back. Well, the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 has been canceled due to observance of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on January 16th. We'll be back for our regular meeting Tuesday, January 24th at 9 a.m. However, today the board will be back at 11:30 a.m. for special meeting of the Board of Supervisors where we'll have 2 items to take up. So if anyone is interested in that agenda, Madam Clerk, are there any copies of the special meeting agenda to the back? Okay. And I assume it's posted. So with that, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for your public comment. and your interest in county government. Thank you. We're adjourned. 11:30 a.m. Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. Time is 11:30 a.m. We're here for a special meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Here.
Richard Valley,
Here.
Doug Verboon,
Here.
Rusty Robinson,
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum. We'll move forward to unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda. Any items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 2 minutes are allowed for each item. Is there anyone at this time wish to make a scheduled appearance, unscheduled in the chambers or online? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, seeing none. We will close the public comment and move forward. Next items on the regular agenda items, we have 2 items to take up today. The first one is item A, coming from the Public Guardian, Veteran Service Office, Mr. Scott Howe. Morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Scott Hallwell, Veteran Services Office. I come before your board today during a special session to request that you authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support authorizing legislation following or allowing a veterans home to be built in the Central Coast region, particularly in Monterey County. Currently, there are severely extended wait times to access established veterans homes here in the state of California for much needed services. If veterans are unable to access the veteran home services in a timely manner, they will have to seek other options, possibly moving out of state or even at risk of becoming homeless. Veterans need stable, affordable housing and care as they transition into the later stages of life, as we well know. Additionally, these housing should be paired with appropriate wraparound services that the men and women who selflessly have served our country deserve. California is losing veterans at an alarming rate, much faster than the next 2 largest veteran population states, which are Texas and Florida. So the numbers in California always get compared to those states. We owe all we have to the veterans of this nation, and it is our joint obligation to do all we can to serve those who have selflessly served for the freedoms we have today. Veterans in need of skilled nursing and memory care, which are the 2 longest wait times and the 2 largest groups currently in the state, are having to wait years before being able to get admitted. The construction of a new veterans home in Monterey County would help alleviate the long wait times and keep our veterans here in the state. Currently, the wait times for these services, for example, in Yountville, which is up in Napa County, which is very popular at this point and undergoing some renovations, 5-year wait time for admittance. West Los Angeles, 2-year wait time for admittance at that campus. Fresno, don't know how many of you have been up there, but it's world class. If you've not been up there, I would invite you to come up there for. We can make arrangements for the board to come up and take a tour up there so folks can see that. But it's a world-class operation, 4 years that folks are having to wait for these services. And the Veterans Home in Reading is 5 years. The others are less throughout the state. There are currently 8 veterans homes. One of them is in what's commonly termed as an undesirable location. It's in Barstow, and a lot of people don't want their veteran there, and frankly, the veterans don't want to be there. For the most part, the construction of a new veterans home will lower or eliminate these wait times for admittance into the CalVet veterans homes for services, including combined skilled nursing and memory care services. Adding an additional veterans home will increase the number of homes in the state from 8 to 9. Homes are available to disabled and aged veterans, as well as spouses and veterans who have become so disabled that they're unable to work. This home or the building of this home would provide much needed care to our state's heroes and decrease the risk of those veterans becoming homeless. By taking this action today, we would show our support for California's veterans. And it is with that that my recommendation is to authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support authorizing legislation allowing a veterans home to be built in the Central Coast region. Stand ready for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Any questions or comments from the board?
Nope, I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Thank you for your presentation.
I just want to one comment quickly. I just want to take the opportunity to thank the veterans. 3 of my uncles are veterans. My brother's currently serving at Quantico now in the Marine Corps. So thank you to all of them.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Right, thank you, Supervisor Robinson. We have motion by Supervisor Boone, second by Supervisor Robinson. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Did I get the second right? Did it come? All right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, Michelle. And can you go ahead and put me on the wait list now for Monterey County? I'd like to be one.
I'm not sure you can get on the wait list until you qualify. You got to be 55 supervisor.
All
I
right.
think that's what, another 10 years away?
Yeah, 10.
And I'd also like to thank admin for their work on this.
Yes, no, it's appreciated.
Tremendous amount of work. Thanks, Ed.
I know Supervisor Leaho appreciates this as well. He's been getting letters of support from all around to help out Monterey County. So
It seems like they should have had one early on. They had the property, they had the base closure, they had Fort Ord right there.
Oh, yeah.
They do.
And they should have done something years ago.
Apologize.
it's going to be nice. This will be nice. Okay, moving on to the next item comes from administration, Mr. Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is being brought to your board secondary to requests received by Supervisor Verboon. On December 9th, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife opened their public comment and data request for the addition of various bee species to the endangered species list. The due date for the response is January 15th, and given the holiday schedules and associated vacations, through your action today, we are requesting that the comment and data collection period be extended to February 5th to give staff and others an opportunity to respond. Therefore, we are requesting you consider authorizing the chairman to sign the letter requesting the extension. This concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, Mr. Hook is in the audience to provide any details that I may not be able to.
No, if no question or comments, I'll make a motion to approve. I think the bees are very important to the stability of our environment, especially when it comes to almonds and cotton, even alfalfa. They need the bees to pollinate. So when they put them on endangered species list, then they'll be controlling our ability to grow or pollinize our crops. So all I have.
Second.
Motion by Super Verboen, second by Super Robinson. Madam Clerk, will you please call the row?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thank you. That takes us to adjournment. And again, the next regular meeting on Tuesday, January 17th has been canceled due to the observance of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on January 16th. We'll be back Tuesday, January 24th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Nice speech.